what is sex? And they usually go, huh?
Dirty, dirty, dirty.
Begin to get into heavy kissing. And the body goes, woo! Hey, sex is a part of God's creation. And it is so great. Thank you. Well, I want you to know that as I travel all around and do all kinds of high school assemblies, I have individuals who come up to me and who say to me, hey, you tell me why I shouldn't get involved in sex. Now, I think that's a pretty legitimate question. So that's what I want to do. I want to give you some pretty good reasons why I think that you ought to wait. And for some of you, this is just going to be totally radical to some of the things you've heard. I mean, you would say, give me a break, man. Nobody's ever said this to me. I mean, everybody's just said, hey, go for it, go for it, go for it. What do you mean wait? Well, all I'm going to ask you to do is just consider this. Just think a little bit, turn on your brains, bring in, suck in some of this material, some of this information, and see if some of the things might make sense. Why shouldn't you get involved sexually? Well, number one is because you ought to want to give your best. If I would say to you, someday do you desire to get married? She'd probably say, well, yeah, not tomorrow, but yeah, someday. And I'd say, well, great. You going to love the person you married? She would say, what? She would say, what a stupid question. Of course I'm going to love the person I marry. I'm going to marry him, aren't I? I say, well, great. Do you desire to give him your very best? She would say, yeah, well, I want to give him my best. And I say, tremendous. Then how come we do that in every area except the sexual? First I go out and I play around with Dave and Mike and Jim. And then I go out and play around with Mary and Sue and Kathy. And there's my husband, there's my wife on the bottom of the list. I mean, how sad to come out on the honeymoon and say, well, here I am, sweetheart, all the leftovers just for you. I mean, everybody else has had a shot at me. Everybody else has used me. And here you are at the bottom of that list. Individuals then say to me, yeah, but Greg, what happens if I get on the honeymoon and I don't know what I'm doing? I mean, hey, man, I don't have any experience, I don't read so good, what happens then? And I say, you'll have fun practicing. You'll have fun practicing. You've got a whole lifetime together. It was never, ever meant that two professionals should come together. Yeah, I've been practicing for this wedding for about 2 years now, okay? It's not supposed to be two professionals. It's supposed to be two novices who love each other and they grow together. Second reason is because it will cause you comparison problems. For you who have been involved sexually, you know right now you never ever forget past lovers. Even as I mention that right now, bing, their faces just pop into your mind right now, okay? You never ever forget them. And if your marriage relationship maybe is not as great as you would like it to be, you begin to compare them with these past lovers. And you say to yourself, ooh, he doesn't touch me the way Festus used to touch me. Or, ooh, she doesn't kiss me the way Bertha used to kiss me, okay? And boy, can Bertha kiss. And what does it cause? It causes you to be discouraged. It causes you to be dissatisfied. Number 3, you give away your virginity one time. Now, you know what? We made a joke of that. What? Are you still a virgin? Oh, no. What, you got a disease? Oh, man. What is wrong with you? Do you know why we made such a joke about that? Do you know why we mocked people so much in that area? Because basically, the world has lost its virginity. And the world couldn't very well stand up and say, hey, it's important to be a virgin, because then it would feel guilty and bad about itself. And misery loves company. So they just say, come on, lose it, lose it, lose it, lose it. And friends, I want you to know your virginity is one of the greatest gifts that you can give anybody. And for you to throw it away in a relationship that's going to last for a week, a month, 6 months, a year, and that person is gone, man, you're just a notch on somebody's belt. I've had men come down to me, or women, and they've said to me, hey, when you're really mature, when you're really sophisticated, then you have intercourse. Intercourse is just a sign of maturity. And I want you to know that is the stupidest thing I have ever heard. Let me give you an illustration. Let me apologize to you ahead of time for this illustration because it's a little bit gross, okay? But I want you to know 2 hippopotamuses can have intercourse. Think about that for a second. On second thought, don't think about that. Don't think about that, no. 2 hippopotamuses can have intercourse. You don't run over to a hippo and say, what a woman. Whoa, all right, no way. No way. That's not a sign of maturity. That's not a sign of sophistication. But let me tell you what is. Let me tell you what takes character. Let me tell you what takes guts. Let me tell you what takes self-control. It's being able to say no. It's being able to say no. Hey, man, if you want to throw it away, you throw it away. But I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Now, that's what takes real maturity. And I want you to know, being a virgin is nothing to be ashamed about, man. That is something to be proud of. That is something that says, you are an individual of character, man. You are an individual that has some convictions and some direction, and you're not going to bow to the pressure of anybody else. Hey, don't compromise, okay? Next, number 4. The 4th reason I don't think you ought to get involved is because it may give you a taste for variety. A taste for variety. If you have been involved with several different individuals, or the person you are going to marry has been involved with several different individuals, the question is, what makes you think that you are going to be satisfied with them, or they're going to be satisfied with you for the rest of your lives? See, the sad fact is that just like there is premarital sex that goes on, there is also adultery that goes on. Sexual relationships between married people who are not married to one another. And do you know what? You may have condemned yourself for a taste for variety. I mean, after a while, sex may not be that all-encompassing drive, and you're so used to these new conquests and new adventures and new bodies that you may become bored with just one individual, and it may cause you to be frustrated and to begin to look around. And imagine the pain you're going to suffer. Imagine the pain you're going to cause the individual you're married to, the pain you're going to cause children. And you know what? Some of you can identify with that because you are from families where one or both of your parents have committed adultery. You know a lot of the pain that you have gone through. So don't. Don't, because you may condemn yourself to that taste for variety. Next, it will distort your relationship. It will distort your relationship. Let me give you an example, okay? I'm going to use this platform right here as kind of a indicator to your relationship, boyfriend, girlfriend, okay? You meet this individual and you begin to go out with them and you get to know them this well emotionally. And then you get to know them this well intellectually. And then you get to know them this well communicatively. And you say, ooh, I love you. Do you love me? Yes. Okay, let's sleep together. And friends, in a relatively short amount of time, you get to know each other really well physically. And so you would say to me, ooh, I feel like we know each other so well. Ooh, I feel like we love each other so much. Ooh, I just feel like we're so close. But friends, in reality, you're all the way back here. In reality, you're all the way back here emotionally, communicatively, intellectually, and there's a gap. There's a gap between where you feel you ought to be and where you are in reality. And I have had individuals come up to me and say to me, Greg, I don't understand it. I feel like we ought to be so close. I feel that we ought to know each other so well. But Greg, all we ever do is fight. All we ever do is argue. Man, we can never ever get along. We're always getting into these hassles. Why? Because your relationship has been distorted from where you feel you ought to be and where you really are in reality. And then next, right along with it, not only will it distort it, but it will destroy it. It will destroy it. The very thing that sex was meant to promote in a marriage. Emotional oneness, open lines of communication, intellectual stimulation tends to do just the opposite in the dating. Why? Because everything begins to center around the sex. You know, you go out together. Okay, you go out together. Okay, we go to a ball game. Okay, hurry. Get done. Don't go into overtime. Okay, now we're done. We got to go eat. Okay, we go eat. Okay, I'll buy you a burger. Okay, shove it in. Okay. Some fries. Here's a Coke. Okay, great. Oh, good, we're done. Now we can go out and mess around. See, everything starts to become a preliminary for the sex. And when that happens, then the relationship begins to crumble from within and it begins to destroy itself. Next, it will wreck your honeymoon. Do you know one of the funnest times in your life is going to be your honeymoon? I mean, you are going to have such a good time. But do you know what? If you were involved sexually with somebody, you're going to wreck your honeymoon. You know why? Because you're not doing anything you haven't done before. Oh, maybe you're in a bed instead of on the floor. Or maybe you're in a bed instead of a car. But you're not doing anything differently. And you know the neat thing about sex in a marriage relationship? It gets better and better and better and better. You know, my beautiful wife, Bonnie, and myself, we look back at our honeymoon. And I got to tell you the truth, there's sometimes we laugh. We look back at our honeymoon and we laugh. And you know why we laugh? Because it was the pits. It was the pits, but friends, the great news is we never knew it was the pits. We thought it was wonderful. We thought it was tremendous. But we have grown together so much, And our sexual relationship now is so much better than that we look back at our honeymoon and we think, oh my goodness, I can't believe that happened. Oh no. Oh, yeah. Because it's so much better now. And you know what makes it so much better in a marriage relationship? Number one is the commitment, man. Sex thrives in that type of commitment, where you say, I vow to love you what? Till feelings fade? No. I vow to love you till death do we part. In sickness and in health, for richer, for poorer, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm going to love you. That's a commitment. It thrives because you are seeking to meet each other's needs. You are saying, I want to give to you 110%, and they are saying, I want to give back to you 110%, and instead of taking from each other, and you've been in relationships where you've been taken advantage of, instead of taking from each other, you are giving to one another. And then finally, you're getting to know each other better. And the better you get to know one another, and the closer you draw to each other, the better you are able to meet those needs. Next, it can cause what are called sexual dysfunctions. It can cause sexual dysfunctions. Let me give you an example of a common sexual dysfunction. And it happens in the women. Ladies, you've made a vow. I'm not going to have intercourse until I get married. I'm not. So, you go out with all these other guys, but you get involved in petting. And you pet, and you pet, and you get all excited, and you get into heavy petting, you're getting all excited, but then you say, stop! That's it. No way, I'm not going to do it anymore. No, I'm going to wait till I get married to have intercourse. And you know what you do? You teach your body to shut off. Now, all of a sudden, you meet that wonderful guy. You're so excited, you fall in love, you get married, it's your honeymoon night. There you are, oh, he looks great, you look beautiful, you're there, you're so much in love and kissing and touching, and you're building and the heavy petting, and you're getting ready for intercourse, and all of a sudden, your body shuts off. And you say, what's going on? And you're frustrated, and he's frustrated, because you have trained your body to do that. Is there any help for that? Yeah, there's help for that. But you're probably going to have to go and get some help and get some counseling and get it done all over again. And what a pain. What a pain and what a frustration. All because you weren't willing to wait. And then lastly is the whole area of VD. Now, I want to tell you a little story. This is kind of off the track a little bit. True story. My mother took me to the doctor. And I came in and I sat down in the doctor's office. And I looked and there was a sign on the wall. And these big letters, it said, VD. And then, I don't know, it said underneath it, it's your problem or epidemic proportions or something like that. So as a little kid, I looked at that and I said, Mommy, what's BD? And of course, being a little kid and my mother kind of taken back by that, she just kind of said, oh, well, now, Gregory, that's something really bad. Okay, now we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to deal with it. You know that VD, that's something real bad. So we'll just, we'll just leave it there. Well, you can't tell a little kid that. It's something really bad, but not tell him what it is. So I'm thinking to myself, VD, it's really bad. It's really terrible. It's the worst thing. I'm thinking, what could it be? What could it be? What could it be? So as a little kid, I thought of the worst possible thing it could be, and I decided that VD had to stand for vicious diarrhea. Okay? I mean, that's the worst thing I could think of, okay? And I want you to know, I would have been the little kid that if I would have been sick and my parents would have been having a party, a lot of friends over, I would have been the little kid who would have run out into the living room and gone, Mommy, Daddy, I have BD, I have BD. My father would say, somebody that kid. Okay? Obviously, venereal disease, friends, is a problem today. It's a massive problem. It affects us. And can I tell you one way that you can be assured that you will never ever get VD, apart from using drugs or blood transfusions or things like that? Honestly, it's you being a virgin, marrying another virgin, and staying faithful to one another. Then you will not have to worry about this area impacting and affecting you. You know, it's important, ladies, that you do not allow men to pressure you. And I want to tell you, and this is sad, but this is true, there are some men, and I am concerned that there may be some men in this very room who will say whatever they need to say to get you to take your clothes off. If it's, I love you, they'll say, I love you. If it's, I'll marry you, they'll say, I marry you. Whatever it takes. Not long ago, I received a letter from a young lady. And I want to share it with you because it really illustrates this point really well. And listen to this, because this is pretty sad. I was going with a 17-year-old last year for 2 months. I was 15. He broke the relationship off, and I took a lot of things into consideration and came to the conclusion that he dumped me because I would not make love with him. He hurt me a lot, and I grieved for quite some time. A year went by, and he came around again and wanted me to go back with him. Like a stupid fool, I went back with him. From the first day that we started going out, he told me he loved me every chance he got. I soon fell head over heels in love with him, and after going together for, how long do you think it took this guy to get this girl to take her clothes off? After going together for 3 days. After going together for 3 days, I made love with him. We went together for 2 months and made love almost every chance we got. I figured that by doing this, I would keep him. I never did anything to hurt him or get him upset. Everything seemed perfect. Well, after going together for 2 months, he just up and decided that he didn't want to go with me anymore. Well, I'm very hurt, and I feel as though I've been used, and that all his I love yous were a bunch of lies. The hurt has turned into bitter hate, and now I totally despise him. Let me ask you to do something. If you are involved sexually right now, well, I don't mean right now, okay? I mean, if you are involved sexually, if you have a boyfriend, if you have a girlfriend, and you are involved with them, try this, okay? Try this. You want to find out if they really love you or not? Don't take my word for it. Just do this. Go back to that guy, go back to that girl, and say to them, oh, I just love you so much. You are just so special. I just care about you so much. But you know what? I want us to grow in some other areas. I want us to grow together emotionally. I want us to grow together intellectually. I want us to do a better job communicating. So you know what I'm going to ask? I'm going to ask that we get rid of the sexual. Do you know what? You'll learn real fast whether they love you or not. And can I suggest that some of you right now know what the answer would be? You know that if you would do that, that guy or that girl, they'd be out the door like that. Now, if you know that's true and you continue in that relationship, you know what? You're not somebody. You're something. You're something. If you want anybody to respect you, then you've got to demand respect for yourself. Do you know, I have a lot of women who come up to me and they say to me, you know what, Greg, we're not looking for sex in a relationship. What we are looking for is intimacy. We're looking for some guy who will just hold us and care about us and tell us how great we are, but he's not interested in that. And he says, sure, sweetheart, I love you a lot. Just take off your clothes, get in the back seat. And ladies, because you cannot get any other type of love, you begin to settle for that. But you know what the problem is? The problem is, after a while, he drops you and moves on. And what happens? You're worse off than you were before. So what do? You run to another guy, and he uses you, and then you're worse off. Then you run to another guy. He uses you, and you're worse off. And you just keep spiraling down and down and down. And there comes a point where you got to say, enough, man. Enough. I'm not something. I'm not some toy. I'm not some stuffed animal. Hey, I am somebody. And you begin to demand respect for yourself. And you begin to work on some of these other areas. Have you ever sought in your relationship, boyfriend and girlfriend, to develop your communication? Can I tell you that a lack of communication is a lack of love? Because you naturally communicate with someone you love? Let me give you this example. Picture yourself again out on a date, okay? Just do that, all right? Picture yourself right now out on a date. If you could go out with anybody, your dreams have come true, you are out with this person, all right? Now picture this. Question is, would you talk to one another? Or guys, would you do this? And ladies, would you look back at him and go, ah! And he'd go, you know what? That would be kind of a strange relationship, okay? If you did that in a restaurant, people would probably stare at you, okay? I imagine you would talk to one another. And why would you talk with one another? Because you like each other. Why don't you decide, hey, tonight we're going to go out together and we're just going to talk. We're going to just talk and we're going to go beyond surface. How are you? How is it? That's okay, great, let's take off our clothes. We're going to go beyond surface level and we're going to deal with how we're feeling about things. You ought to work on the intellectual area of your relationship. I mean, when's the last time you went out, you bought a paper, and you sat down together as a couple, and you just read the paper together? I mean, other than the funnies, okay, you know. Oh, boy. No, other than the funnies, other than the sports, take the main section of the paper, open it up, and discuss it. How do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And work on that intellectual area. And then also work on the emotional. Work on the emotional. That means you really ought to understand each other. Do you know how to best help that individual when they're depressed? Do you know how to best help that individual when they're scared, when they're confused, when they're angry? Well, you ought to. You ought to, and you never will until you sit down and you really communicate and you understand one another emotionally. Hey, listen, there are a lot of good reasons for you to wait. And I guarantee you, if you make that decision, you will never, ever regret it. But one great reason for waiting is because it is so worth waiting